What's good, YouTube? In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to go pro in zero builds in 2024. And just to show you that I know what I'm talking about, I have over 60,000 earned and a lot of zero build tournament wins. Before we get in the video, I'd like to thank, by the way, Grom850 for leaving this positive comment on my last video. If you want to be featured in my next one, leave a comment down below and I read every single one of them. So let's get into the video. The best way to improve in zero build is finding out what you're doing wrong and fixing those mistakes. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to break down this video into 5 parts: off spawn, early game, mid game, late game, and in game. So starting with off spawn, you're going to need to make sure that you're landing at a spot that plays to your abilities. If you're not that good at the game, do not land at a very contested POI and die every single game off spawn. You'll never get better that way, and you also will never become a pro. Me personally, I like to land Grand Glacier because I'm a really good player. The loot there is really good. There's also a medallion. And one thing that happens is I run into a lot of bad players there and I kill them every single time. A thing that helps me kill them every time is the fact that I always land on roof before them. And the way I do this is something called a drop map. It's basically a bunch of markers around the POI that shows where you need to auto deploy your glider. Obviously, if you do it right, you'll be the first person to land, meaning you basically just get free kills and you can easily win the off spawn fight. Another crucial part about off spawn is knowing what items and guns to carry going into the early, mid, and late game. And in my opinion, the best guns and items to carry are the auto shotgun, the scar, the grapple hook, bunkers, and then the fizz juice or any other type of heals. And if you have those, you're basically set for the whole entire rest of the game. So going into the early game, that's pretty much just the first rotate you'll make outside of your POI or wherever you land. So for me, since I land Grand Glacier, the first rotate I make outside of my POI is actually going to the forecast tower bottom left of Grand Glacier, which has a 100% spawn rate. So I pretty much fight for that every game because I know if I get forecast tower, that sets me up for the rest of the tournament. And by the way, this was a $50,000 tournament, so it was pretty important. Early game can also be used to fight nearby POIs or landing spots. So if you look at the bottom right of the map, you have about 40 or 30 chests all around each other, and there's actually a mountain next to a different landing spot. So for somebody who lands here, a realistic play would be for them to go on top of the mountain and look to fight the team below, and that would also still classify as early game. So this kind of goes back to off spawn, and when you're picking your landing spot, you have to account for what you can do in your early game and what you play for. Now going into mid game is where you play off where zone is. So let's say you land bottom right and zone pulls top left. At this point, your early game is done, so now you look to rotate towards zone. There's also something called dead side, which is pretty much the side of zone where the least amount of players are, which is ideal in a lot of stacked tournaments, especially victory cups, considering the win is the only thing that matters. Mid game is very important because it's how you set up your late and in game. If your mid game is really bad and you put yourself in a bad position, you lose a lot of your util, maybe you waste some bunkers, then you're extremely screwed for late game. So one way you want to make sure you don't waste bunkers or make bad rotates is by going mountain to mountain and clearing bushes and only taking safe angles. Another underrated part of mid game is actually storm camping to relocate around the zone and get to the best possible spot. As you can see in this game, we end up tanking storm, going to the tallest pad in the whole entire game and padding to dead side, which happens to be the bottom left side of this zone because as you can see, there are more POI and landing spots at the top right of zone. So that means there's going to be more people on that edge. So in our mid game, we kept trying to get to the dead side of zone, but there was a medallion team holding us on top of a house, on top of a hill. So there's pretty much no rotating past them. At this point, we noticed that they were actually the frenzy team because they had a medallion and nowhere else on the map to the right or up near frenzy was there a medallion. So this meant that it was almost guaranteed to be the frenzy team. We ended up rotating into frenzy, pimping out our guns, and we obviously made sure nobody was there. But after this, we ended up farming up whites. So in case one of us dies, the other one can run into storm, get the white heals, and heal off if need be to secure some placement points, considering this isn't a victory cup, this is just a regular tournament. So it's 65 points for the win, 2 points per kill. Something that you'll see me do in this mid game is I continually get on top of trees or get to a high elevation just to clear around me. Again, I don't know where exactly this medallion's going because it's actually bugged on the map and it still shows they're in zone. So I end up getting on a tree, checking my left, checking my right. And the good thing about high elevation as well is if there's a sniper looking at you, you'll 100% see him. So there's literally no downside to it. I make sure everything's clear. We end up rotating in, and this is where late game begins. Some of the main things I want you to remember about mid game is, number one, the fact that I kept getting to high elevation to make sure nobody was sneaking up on me. Number two, I didn't force anything. Because there's a team holding me on a mountain, I just decided to rotate the other way. And if I really needed to, I would have tanked Storm with the extra whites that we farmed in Frenzy. And the third thing is take what's given. Again, because that team was holding me, I took Frenzy because they borderline gave it to me. So now we're going into late game. Mid game is what you use to get into a really good spot going into late game. And late game is just converting on whatever position you put yourself in. So let's say in mid game, you got yourself to a mountain on dead side on high ground. The rest of the late game, you're going to be pressuring people around you, making sure nobody tries fighting you on the mountain and rotating to the next zones. This is also true the other way around. Let's say you're completely shambles, you have no loot, and you're on congested side. From this point on, you're going to be playing to get a strong refresh or a good position on the map. A lot of the time in late games, I see people just hiding in their bunker, not playing off their position whatsoever. In some cases, hiding in your bunker is the play, but 90% of the time, you need to be gaining info about your surroundings to see how you rotate the next zone, or if there's any potential refreshes that you can get. So in this late game, we're rotating into zone, and I actually use elevation once again to scout my area, and I notice there's a team in a bunker in front of me. They're not rotating, so I have my teammate impulse them out. After that, I notice another team to our left trying to take our spot of zone. So I get there early, I bunker, and we end up headshot sniping one. They end up rezzing their boy and impulsing us out. We end up just getting back, and then from that point on, we start to focus on our next rotate, which was all the way across the zone. We end up using the Flowberry Fizz, like I told y'all about earlier, and impulsing into next zone. The main things I want you to take away from this endgame is the fact that we applied a lot of pressure to the teams that were threats to us. This doesn't just mean randomly shoot people and grief them. This means we secured our spot in zone, and then we chilled there until we saw where next zone was, and we simply rotated. In game is simply where you just convert what you already did in your late game to secure the win. Because in the late game, you should pretty much be setting yourself up for an easy win, getting a good position in zone, good HP, good loot, and everything. Because in late game, no matter what loot you have, no matter how shambles you are, you should pretty much always be able to get yourself a refresh or two, a good side of zone to set yourself up for that end game, to where at that point, it's a chore to lose. You have to try to lose because you're in such a good position. So in the late game, we ended up fizz juicing with an impulse to get front side of the first moving zone. From this point on, I ended up sacrificing bunkers to basically make an unbeatable fort because I know zone pulls back. And at that point, I only need pretty much one bunker to win the game. We end up using this position we're in to basically just clean up solos running on low ground to have no loot. After zone starts pulling back, we stay in our bunker to clean up as many kills as we can before we end up rotating. We would have played a lot more aggressive in this end game, but we all had packet loss for some reason. So we end up just playing front low with the bunker, which is pretty much ideal anyways because we're the only team ahead of zone. And at this point, it's just a free win. So after an extremely easy end game, we all win with pretty much 250 HP. I don't know if any of us really got shot, and that just goes to show how well we played this game. We used our mid game to get us to a good spot in zone, an uncontested frenzy fields in the mid game at least. And then in late game, we end up pressuring people around us and hitting a nice max impulse to get front side of in game. And that's the main thing you want to do is just stay front side of every moving zone. And we easily won.
Okay, heard. I'm popping this kid.
Watch to the right. Yeah, right there. Oh, I didn't get it. Stare up top.
On low. There's two on low.
All right, these are just last ones. Can you finish? It's just last guy. Last deal.
We're good, bitch!
Oh, we didn't get any of those. That time we gotta win. Just shut it down, chat. I hate snipers. So as always, I hope you liked the video, and if you do, make sure to subscribe. Also, let me know in the comments if y'all want more videos like this, like educational type videos. Also, can we get this video to 150 likes? It'd be like my first tutorial video, so yeah, God bless.